Hello, Happy Valley. Today's video is going to be on lettering and ruler practice. We're first going to work with our ruler, noticing the difference between the inch and centimeters, and we work with the inch. We'll be adding a 1-inch border to our paper. And then we're going to break. I'm going to introduce the project for line, and we'll come back and finish up our practice with lettering. We're going to work with basic block and bubbled letters, and then I'm going to teach you how you can embellish and add to those. So anyway, let's get started. All right, guys, before we get started, I want to make sure you have the proper materials to do this assignment. You're going to need some white paper, plain white paper. Do not use line notebook paper. It can be off-white, that's fine. Just try to keep it light in value. You're going to need a sharpened pencil and a ruler. So what we're going to do first is work with our ruler, and I want you to become familiar with it and understand it. So you're usually going to see on a ruler two sets of numbers. So on the top part we have the inches, and this part has a wider space in between numbers. We will be working with inches. On the opposite side you have centimeters. All right, they are much closer together. And there's less space in between them. So you do not want to use this side of your ruler. We're going to be working with inches. And what we're going to do today with our piece of paper is we're going to add a border on here. This is practicing getting ready for our first project where we will have to use a ruler and create a border. So I want us to create a nice 1-inch border that's going to go all the way around our paper. So in order to do this, you're going to create an inch. So you're going to go to the side of the paper and line your ruler up. Now you don't have to start at the 0, and I often don't start at the 0. I use another number. Any number, any set of numbers in between them is a whole inch. So it doesn't matter what set of numbers you start with. I'm going to start with the number 3. Okay, so I'm lining up my edge with the number 3, and I'm going to make a tick mark where number 4 is. Just a little tick mark. Okay, and I'm going to do this a few times as I go up my paper. So I'm going to line up that 3 and make a tick mark at the 4. And again, it doesn't matter what set of numbers you use, you just need to choose a set of numbers to work with. Once you have a few of those dashed lines on there, you are then going to connect them with your ruler. So you're going to lay your ruler vertically, line those up, put some pressure on with your ruler, and take your pencil and draw lightly. Now I'm going to drag my pencil, making sure I hit all of those little tick marks. Pressure makes a big impact on your artwork. And what I like to say is draw light until you know it's right. You can always go back and add. It's harder to take away. So there's the side. So let's do the same thing on the other side. We're going to take our ruler. Now look, you can turn it back around so you can see correctly. So now I'm going to work the opposite way. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the 5 and make a tick mark at the 4. Make sure you are using the inches. Line my ruler up, make a tick mark. Again, it doesn't matter what set of numbers. I could turn this and go to number 7 and make a tick mark at the 6. It's all 1 inch. Okay, you just want to make sure that you're using the inch. Once I have enough of those little dashes on there, and I don't need to make many of them, I've only got 3 on here, I'm going to line them up. So I'm going to turn that ruler vertically, line those dashes up. I'm taking my time. Notice as I'm not rushing, taking my time. I'm going to use my opposite hand, the one I don't write with, and I'm going to lightly drag my pencil across. You need to make sure you're holding that ruler down, putting enough pressure on there so that it doesn't move on you. And let me zoom out and show you what the whole thing looks like so far. All right, so at this point, we do have the 1-inch border for the sides of our paper. All right, now we're going to do the top and the bottom. So when you were working on the sides, your ruler was placed horizontally. To do the top and bottom, your ruler now has to move vertically. Same thing that we did before. You're going to line up a number. So I have the number 3 down here, and I'm going to simply make a tick mark at the 4. I'm going to move my ruler down, line up the 3, or whatever number you choose, mark the 4, making sure that it's staying at the 1 inch. And I'm going to place 3 of these on this paper. Again, you don't have to put a bunch of them, just put what you need. And once you've got those placed on there, so you can see my 3 marks, you're then going to take your ruler, line up those marks. I'm taking my time. All right, patience is a virtue, and you'll never hear that enough as you do in art. All right, being patient. Place pressure down on your ruler, and with your dominant hand, draw across. Now I want you to notice what I've done. So I didn't draw on these last corners. You can if you want to, but I'm just trying to prevent myself from having to erase a bunch. So what I'm going to do now is erase this added part that I didn't need. And that's why I'm always telling you guys to draw lightly, because if you need to erase or edit or change things, you can do that. It's when you draw with really heavy pressure that you're going to have a hard time removing all of the graphite or the pencil drawing. And also, it just lets you, you could edit things better when you draw lightly. All right, let's do the top part of this. So again, placing that ruler vertically, you're using the inches. Do not use the centimeters. Pay attention to what size you are, or what side you're using. Marking where the 3 is, or placing it where the 3 is, marking the 4. I'm going to make about 3 tick marks on this. Placing it where the 3 is, marking the 4. Once I have those all laid out, I'm going to take my ruler, make sure they all line up together. And another trick that you can do is, sometimes maybe your inches are getting bigger and you don't want a diagonal line or a moving line. So what you need to do is just step back or look back at it once you've got it. Make sure it looks nice and straight before you make your mark. I'm not going to drag my pencil all the way across. I'm just going from where that line met to the other so that I don't have to erase as much. And I'm going to come in here and erase the excess. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do this. And right now we have a 1-inch border going around our paper. Before we get started working with letters, I want to introduce to you our project for line. The title of our project that we're going to be working on is Zentangle Names. Now we have not done the Zentangle assignment yet, but you do understand what it is from the notes, and we're doing that part. But I want you to be thinking about, your project and what you're going to be wanting to do for it. So we're going to be creating a name. You can choose any name that you'd want. You just have to have 3 letters. So you could do your initials if you'd like, a nickname that you have as long as it's tasteful. You could do your first, middle, or last name, or even all of them if you really wanted to. You can do a friend's name or a family member's name, a boyfriend or girlfriend's name. You can do a pet's name. It's up to you as what you'd like to do. Now on our actual project, we will be creating a 1/2-inch border. I know for today's assignment we worked with the 1-inch border, but we will be creating a 1/2-inch border. We will have a string or sections must be presented in the background, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But if you do remember, a string was just a random line, pencil line drawn to create areas in which you can tangle. But anyway, we will be creating a string for the background. Now you need to be thinking about how you want to position your name. Is this going to be read from left to right, straight across? Are you going to position these directly in the middle of your composition? Are your letters going to be at a diagonal? Are they going to be backwards? Are they going to be jagged, where some are above and some are below? And then think about how you want to create your border. You're going to use a bold outline. Are you going to create implied lines? And are you going to work with a simple traditional black and white, or are you going to use color? So here's an example, and we have a nice, this is when I would do 1-inch borders, so we'd have a nice 1-inch border. But you can see here, we don't have an outlined border, okay? We have an implied line. So there is nothing that is connecting these two, but we can visually see the ends of that because we are implying those, or we are creating the closures for those letters, but they're pretty much just bleeding into the border. Now you can have these letters kind of connect. So right here we have the A and the S, they do connect. And these are traditionally right in, towards the center of the composition. You can make letters that are difficult to interpret. And can you figure out what the name is on here? If you see Vanessa, that's what it is. So you can see that the V is over on the left-hand side. The A's are spider webs. And then you have the N and the E are connected. And here's one S and the other S. So your letters don't necessarily have to be legible or easy to read. You can blend them in with your backgrounds. But here we also have another implied border. So in order to do this, you don't, obviously you draw it out with your pencil, but whenever you finalize things, you don't go over them with marker so that you can simply erase them at the very end. So just think about if you want to create more implied letters, or if you wanted bold outlined letters. Another wonderful example of implied letters. So look at her letters here. This says Stella, and you don't have any bolded outlines surrounding the letters, all right? They are all implied. So to do this, she basically drew them with a pencil, worked on her entire background, adding the black and the white, or just really the black, and then going back and erasing. Now you can think about this. You don't have to have those inner parts to the letters like E or A. She kind of left them completely blank. And then if you look over here, she's added a cat to her screen. So right where the A is, you can kind of see the head of the cat. Quite interesting. Here's an example of adding both black and white and color. So I allowed this student, before anybody makes a comment, that I allowed this student to use 2 letters. She had a specific reason as to why she wanted to do that, and I accepted that. So again, if you have something that you want to do differently, let me know. I'm open to suggestions, and I'll let you change it. You just need to have a purpose and a reason. But anyway, so she chose to color in her letters, which you don't have to do. You can keep them completely blank and open. But she wanted to really emphasize the inside of her letters. So I allowed her to do that. And she wanted to add color to that. And that's perfectly fine with that. But you can see that her border is a bolded outline. And she said she wanted to encase everything and really focus your attentions. And when you have something that doesn't have a bold outline to it, it makes it softer and less, emphasized. Here's an example of how you could do your letters if you wanted to do them backwards. And this student requested that he do his letters backwards, which I was fine with. And he didn't really need to request that with me, but then he asked if he could add the details to the border and leave the interior part white. He had a reason. It wasn't that he was trying to cut corners. And so I accepted that. So again, if that's something that you'd like to do with your project, be my guest. I'm more than happy to allow you to do that. Now here's an example of working with a curved font. So this student, you can see her name is Gracie, and she wrote her name out, and then she just lightly bolded it. So it's very thin, and if you choose a cursive font, just remember this art piece, and if this is the look you want where it's kind of difficult and blends in with the background, again, you're more than welcome to do that. But what I would suggest, if you choose to do a cursive font but you still want the letters to be seen and dominant, to add a bubble around the whole exterior. And if that's something you want to do, let's talk about it together and I can give you a little bit more pointers. Here's a really cool one. So if you look at the bottom here, they've actually added a little bit of a shadow. If you look on the left-hand side too, they've added a little bit of shadow to give it depth, to make it look like it's popping off of the page, or give it a little bit of form. So you can do that entirely if you'd like to add that kind of feature to your art piece. Another example, this one looks as if the letters are on top and then you have the background behind it. So your letters don't have to stay inside that framework. They can totally come out. They can get into your border. So that's up to you. And again, this is very bolded, and so her letters are dominating. If she had not put the bold lines around her letters, it might not have the same impact or feeling. And you can work completely in color if you'd like. And here's a wonderful example of that. Maybe you have a favorite band or album that you want to create your art piece around. Again, I am more than happy for that. One thing I will say about this, and the student and I discussed it afterwards, is that she chose to, use lyrics around her border, and lyrics are lines. Words are lines. So you're more than welcome to have words written all over your art piece. But she decided to do that after the fact. And a lot of this is colored in. There isn't really a lot of different variations in lines. And so, I would have preferred for her to have put those lyrics maybe in the backgrounds of the white, black sections, the red sections, and left her border a little bit and left it white, because it's very busy, but it also has kind of a cool impact. So I'm not necessarily sure how it would have looked, but my suggestion to her was to have written those inside of the space and left the border white. Here's a really cool example. She asked if she could create this building and do different line details inside of it, create the drawing and do the details in there, and leave everything else white. She said she wanted to make the border look more like a box, like you're looking through, or like a window. And I think she nailed that. And then she just put her name on the little flag that's going behind the airplane that's in the hands of King Kong. Anyway, again, I'm open to interpretations of what you would like to do. If you want to differentiate for yourself, or you have a really cool idea, don't be shy. Let me know. Let's talk it out. And I'm more than happy to bend my rules for your assignments. Here's another really cool one. So she broke hers up with triangles in the background. But again, mixing black and white with color. You can pick a small color scheme and work with only certain colors. So this student chose to work with white, blue, and red with a little bit of black and silver. All right, so very limited color scheme, and it has a really cool effect. Now, he added these little, added details, the Cummings symbol, and he wanted to add the skull. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, if you want to add something on there, let me know. We've got ways of doing that. We'd have to print off a picture and superimpose it on there, but I have tools that will do that. So if that's something you want to do, just talk to me and let me know. Here's another really cool one, keeping it black and white. And what she decided to do is do a jagged line to bold out her letters. And then she even had her string that went around in the background, and she bolded that out as well. So it looked like it was all like a brain, and things were all kind of connected to it. Here's a really cool one where we added, this is just simple initials. So they're over on the left-hand side, and then she has this beautiful flower that she created over on the right-hand side. Again, she's got, a lot of line variations. She's outlined her letters. Kind of a neat idea. And then lastly, we have this really cool piece. This student, came to me and said she really liked pineapples and she wanted to do something with a pineapple. She said she wanted to do a really like pineapple-y border and then draw the pineapple in the center, do different Zentangles inside of the hexagons, and then add her name up in the top. So she really wanted to kind of keep that background plain, and I think it turned out marvelously. So again, if you want to do something special, ask me, let me know. All right, let's get back to working with our letters. All right, guys, welcome back. So let's talk about lettering. And some of you might be already comfortable with lettering. Others of you might be very uncomfortable or not feel that they are adequate or able to do this. And there's a simple trick that I have to show you. So what I want you to do is practice lettering. And I know I'm told you just to be thinking of a name that you want to use for your Zentangle name. So you can practice those letters, or maybe you have no idea what name you want to do right now, and so you just want to practice a few letters. But you can work with your own name for this assignment, or your initials for this assignment. But let's start off. So I have, you could look online and look for fonts. I have a few examples of fonts, and you can look online and find an example of something that you'd want to learn how to do, and watch some videos if you wanted to on a particular font. You could do cursive, you could do blocky fonts. That's kind of the things I was talking about prior to this. But I'm going to show you guys a simple, easy way just to get started with lettering, and then you can delve into things that are a little bit more difficult. So I'm just going to pick out some basic letters, and one of the most difficult letters to do is the letter S. So if that's the first one I'm going to show you how to do. So remember, I say draw light until you get it right. So what I like to do is first write out the letter. So simply write out your letter. Here's the letter S, okay? And what you're going to do is, I like to pretend like this is hot lava and you don't want to touch it, or it's a bomb and you don't want to touch it. You want to keep an equal distance. So on the top part, I'm just going to follow along that line, and I'm trying to keep an equal distance from the original line I drew to the top line I'm now drawing. I try and keep as equal of a distance as I can. And all I'm doing is just mirroring that first one, keeping an equal distance. Same thing underneath it. I'm going to try to keep that same equal distance from it. Now you're probably wondering why I haven't done the ends. And that's because you can change things and choose how you have your endings. You can make something more curved, something curvilinear, or you can make something more boxy. Or you could even have a mix of both. But once you get that done, you want to come back in here and erase that original letter that you wrote. That's why I tell you draw lightly, because we do a lot of erasing in art. And it doesn't really leave a harsh line. So again, you can choose if you want something to be more bubbly and curved, or you want something to be more blocky and straight. Another letter that we have a difficult time with is the letter M. So let's just write it out. And again, you want to simply stay away from that original writing. Keep as equal of distance as you can. And then end your letter. And get rid of the original. It's a pretty simple trick on how to do letters, how to do basic letters. Another one I get is the letter K. Write it out first. And you can have fun with it. You can make it extra long on certain parts or shorter in areas. It's up to you. You just want to keep your distance. Keep equal distance as best as you can. And then I come in here and I end my letters. You could even have fun with the endings. They don't have to be perfectly straight across. You could come down at an angle if you wanted to. You can have one side angling, up, one side angling down. It's entirely up to you on how you want to represent your letters. Erase that inside. You'll notice I left this one open because I'm going to do something fun with it. So once you've got that basic down, you can even add some flair to them if you want to, and you can come in here and you could curl this up. So sketch. A lot of times I see students, they'll just come in here and draw a line, and that's fine if you know exactly what you're doing, but sometimes you don't. So what I like to call it is dating. Let's date the lines. Let's go on lots of dates. Let's not marry the lines. So we're going to just kind of draw a bunch of little lines, and then we can come back in and pick which ones we want to keep. Okay, but if we wanted to really have fun with this, we could then make this letter K have a tail. Maybe it comes to a point. Something like that. We can have fun with these endings of our letters. Sometimes my kids like to do the decapitated letters. So we will make it look like a bone is sticking out. So we can come back over here and we can kind of break the ending if we must, and then we get this front part off. And then we can draw like a bone. So let's say we have a bone sticking out. All right, or maybe somebody bit into our letter. So we have a whole section missing. Some of my kids love to do the melting letters. So let's do one of those. Let's do the letter D, because that's a hard one. All right, so the letter D, write out your letter. Again, you don't have to do the same letters I'm doing. I'm just giving an example. But I'd like you to practice lettering on your page. I don't want to see one practice on here. So I'd like you to practice multiple times on here with different designs, trying to figure out what you want to do. All right, so we've got the basic letter D right now. Now we could, if we wanted to, go around the outside, but this is pretty much set up for us. All we have to do is draw the inner side. So all I'm going to draw is that inside part. Just going to mimic the D, make a smaller one inside, and there we go. Pretty simple. It's not as difficult as you thought. But let's say we want to make this letter melt. Okay, so what we can do is, let's say we're making it melt from the bottom. We could just simply draw a random dot. We want to vary that up, so bring it up a little bit, bring another one, make it thinner. Maybe we want to go up a little bit more, and then we want to vary the line. And all I'm doing is slowly wiggling my line just a bit. I'm going to mesh it up, and then what we can do is get rid of that original indication right there, and it makes our letter look like it's melting. Now let's say we're doing a more cursive font. Maybe you want to do one of this Disney font. Okay, so let's do the letter A. Keep my example right next to me. All right, so all you need to do really is write out your letter, but instead of writing, this is how I would write my letter A, but we can obviously look at this and realize that this letter A does not come to a peak, to a point. All right, it's more rounded. So I'm going to round my A. So all I'm doing is making the top part of my A like this, which is simple. And if you look here, it doesn't have a straight line across. All right, it starts down here at the bottom, and it's going to come around and loop. So I'm just going to draw that out. And there's the basic form, but now, or the basic shape. But let's say we want to make this thicker. We're going to do what we were doing a minute ago. We're just going to mimic that line. All right, we can run right beside it. Don't worry about that curly cube. Wait till that at the very end. And we're just going to thicken this up a little bit. This comes to a straight edge. So go around. Don't worry about that inner part yet. All right, now we're going to start on this part. So if you look here, it actually starts over on this side. All right, so we're going to thicken this part now we're working on. Add to it. And this part comes to a little point. I'm going to work my way back the other way. Now if you look, this is in front. And I'm just going to thicken this a little bit more. Now all I need to do is erase some things. So in between, I'll erase because I want that curly Q part to be in front. And it's in front here, so I'm going to erase there. And it's in front of all this, so I'm just going to come in here and erase a little bit, and then I'm going to have to draw back my lines. I will say this, when we get to working on our actual project, if you choose a curly font, be ready to have a border around the outside of it so that you can see that, unless your objective is to make it hard to read or less visible. But a curly Q font is kind of difficult to do. All right, and then get rid of that little part down here. And we have the basics of that curly Q letter. I'm going to show you one more type of design, and that's going to be something very blocky and boxy like this. So let's do the letter O. Okay, I think that would be a really good one to show you guys. All right. So what we're going to do is simply just draw out the letter O. Now, your letter doesn't have to be stretched and vertical like this. You could make a really fat letter O, all right? It doesn't have to look just like that, but anyway. I'm just going to sketch out my letter. And this is just like the letter D. We've already got the outside of it. We just need to draw that inner part. Okay. So there we go. All right, then once we've got that, we can kind of come back in here and pick the lines that we want to keep. And get rid of what we don't want. Kind of clean it up a bit. Simple right there. There's the letter O. But now we want to make it look like this little box here, or this more blocky letter. So what we have here is on the edge, it starts to come out just a bit. So where the end of our letter is, we're going to have it kind of come out just a bit. Right, we've made like a little tiny tail on it. And if you look down here, it comes and it ends right about down here. And we're going to add a little tail there too. Okay? And all we want to do is follow the shape, the original shape. We're going to follow that original shape, and we're going to connect those two spaces. Follow that original shape. Now my tail down here looks pretty flat, so what I can do is just kind of curve it back towards the letter. And then I'll kind of erase what I did before. Essentially, that's what you're doing. All right, now let's talk about the inside. If you look here, there's a little bit of space here, so all we've done, and it ends there, so all we've done is just kind of hook there. All right, then to make those little lines, you just want to simply make some little horizontal lines that go with the shape. Same thing right here. So really the key is when you're trying to mimic a font is just look at it, observe it, really see where things start, where things end, and take note of that. See how things overlap or underlap when you're creating your letters. So I want to see multiple letter practice. If you already know what name you are doing, I'd like to see at least 2 or 3 versions of designs. I want to see you practicing those letters. So I'm expecting there to be 6 to 10 letters on your paper. And when you get done, I'd like you to take a picture of your artwork or your practice, and I would like you to upload it on Canvas if you are not in class when we work on the assignment.